is Marcus and Terry here with you on this wonderful Thursday. Today we are talking about Zen Koans for addiction recovery and how they help. Now, Terry asked me very kindly before the stream started not to tell him or not to have him answer a cone because sometimes they can be kind of tricky, and the answers are different for everyone. Now, I kind of want to go over an overview of what these cones are and how they help so that you can understand, like, what's the point? How would you use them for recovery? Well, the idea of a Zen cone is to get your mind in a different state to where you're not thinking about the problem or the solution, and it's kind of like a doorway in your brain. I was trying to explain this to my kids last night. They were all having crazy thoughts and stuff like that. I was trying to talk to them about it, and I was like, it's interesting because sometimes in life, when you hear about something different that expands your understanding, what happens is it's almost like there's a door in your brain that's opened, and once it's opened, it can't be shut, right? Like if I tell you that, the government's ran by robots, and I prove it to you, it's not, don't worry. But if I did, and I proved it to you, that's something that would open in your brain. You'd be like, well, I wasn't even thinking about that before. Now I know this is a fact, and now I can't unthink that, right? It's like something that you can't go back on. You can't change. And it's kind of like something that you know, kind of like being an alcoholic is like once you realize, hey, look, I have a problem with this, and this is the problem. It's not the anxiety. It's not the issues with mom. It's not the issues with this. That door opens, and you really can never go back to regular as things were, drinking, thinking everything's not about drinking. Does that make sense to everyone? Right?
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, it's like a door in your brain. So when we have something like a Zen cone, what happens is the idea is to get the focus off whatever we think the problem is. And I'll kind of map it out, right? We'll map it out as well as we can. So what happens is, how many of you guys have heard of a guru, right? There's like a guru who you go to get the answers, and the guru's up here, and he's like up on this mountain, right? And here's our guru guy. He sits cross-legged, and there he is. This is our guru guy. It's an excellent, excellent guru. I should be winning an art contest for the guru, right? And if you guys can't see it, I thank God for the small camera, right? But the guru here, what happens is people go to the guru. And when people go and they seek out self-help, or they seek out a way to be enlightened or broadened or thought change or whatever it is they go to a guru or they go to someone else to get an answer, right? All throughout life, we're looking for an answer. Marcus, Terry, what's the answer to stop drinking? What's the answer to happiness? What's the answer to a better life? And so all these people, right, all these people go to the guru, and they got really weird looking pants here, okay? And they go to the guru, and they are seeking an answer. And they're like, oh, wait, wise guru, I drink too much, and my wife is a pain in the ass. What do I do? Right? And the guru sits up there, and if he's a good guru, what he does is he says something completely unrelated to whatever you're thinking about, right? And you'll go to him and you'll be like, what is the secret to this? And he'll be like, the sound of one hand clapping. And now some people will listen to that and they'll be like, what the hell? Dude, you don't understand, guru boy. I have these problems. I got these problems. And he says, well, the sound of one hand clapping. And you go, that guy's a damn fraud, man. What the hell? He sits up there on his mountain and, he drinks tea. What the hell? But what I learned through studying this stuff and really changing the way that I think is I learned that the guru type thing, when people would go, and I studied from people like, listened to people like Alan Watts, Ram Dass, Krishnamurti, a couple others as well. And I'd listen to these guys. There's also a Jesuit priest guy, who also speaks about that. But it's not like a priest like you would think. It's like a whole different thing. But I would listen to them, and I listened to their stories and what they had in common. And what they had in common is the fact that they all went looking for themselves, and they all went looking for a way to better themselves, right? So we come to this stuff and we're like, I want to drink, I want to stop drinking so that I could make more money, so that I could be better, so that my marriage will be healed, so that this, so that this. Same thing with self-help. I want to be happier. I want to attain this. I want to be a better person, right? And we go to the guru and we're like, we want to be better people. And the very fact that you go to him saying, I want to be a better person is the very fact, the very reason that you can't. Right? Think about that for a minute, because the very fact that you want these things is the reason you can't, because the real way of getting past these things is letting go. Yep. That's why in alcoholism, we look at it and we're like, well, I can fight alcohol. I could sit there and say, I don't got a problem, or I got this under control, or I can quit whenever I want, or I'm going to be happy. How do you know you're going to be happy? Is there a bell that rings one day and boom, you're happy? And that's why Zen Koans are very good to read, and it's a great practice in recovery, in spirituality, or whatever it is, because of the fact that they get you out of your mind. And so I looked at these guys like Alan Watts and Ram Dass, and they would go and they were seeking something outside themselves. They were seeking something bigger. They were looking for betterment of themselves. They were not happy with their current lot in life, and so they go travel all the way over to India, and they see this guy called a guru. And this dude is sitting on a tucket, they call it, just like a big board, right? And he's sitting there half naked. Like, seriously, he's got like a robe on. If he turns the wrong way, you're like, dude, put that stuff away. We're here to be enlightened, not to see what's under the robe there, right? And so they'd go to this guy, and the dude's just sitting there eating grapes. And they'd be like, dude, guru guy, you don't understand. My life is crazy. I make $100,000 a year. I got credit card bills, I got this, I got that. And he says something completely ridiculous. And now, if you're following along, the idea is that the guru does not play your game. He doesn't play your game. The game that you're saying, and we had a guy in our Facebook group, which if you're not in our Facebook group, I will put a link to the Facebook group at some point. Terry, if you could put it in there, that would be helpful, because if I click this screen, it's going to make everything weird. I don't know why I have everything on one monitor. There's a guy in the Facebook group, and he comes to me, and he starts writing this big thread about, you guys don't understand how bad of a person I am. You don't understand what I've done. Here's the things I've done. Here's this craziness. And the initial response, the initial way that we want to respond to someone like that is to say, oh, don't worry, buddy. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's going to be okay. Sure, we've all done bad things. And the idea is to engage in whatever the content is. And this goes back to some of the teachings that I do, where we talk about content of mind, okay, and working of mind, okay? The content of the mind is the stuff. I'm a terrible person. I can't quit drinking. I got these problems. All this stuff, okay? The content of mind is all the stuff. The working of the mind is the way your brain works. A lot of alcoholics, a lot of addicts, the working of our mind is in a way that's obsessive. It's in a way that's fast. It's in a way that really spins us out. Now, whatever you feed into your mind is going to go into the working of your mind, the way it works. So if I win the lottery, put that in the working of mind, I'm going to obsess about what to do with all my money. If I lose my job, put it in the working of mind, I'm going to obsess about how much money I don't have. Whatever it is that you put in the mind, the content is going to get spun out in the working. Okay, so these are the two things. Now, in Western culture, in America, we focus primarily on the content of mind. Okay, unfortunately, the way that our stuff's structured here in Western culture is, hey, if the content of the mind is bad and you can't stop thinking about things, maybe take something or whatever. And that's not to say don't listen to your doctor. Your doctor knows best. Me and Terry are just two lunatics who've stayed sober for 5 years. That's my disclaimer. But what we're doing is we're trying to battle the content of the mind. And the guru says, you know what? The content doesn't make a damn bit of difference.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Everything is an illusion. And so we have to look at this and say, well, Marcus, you don't understand. You say everything's illusion, but my credit card bill is this. All right? And it's like, would your credit card bill not exist with or without you, and does it even really matter? Like, if you don't have the money to pay the credit card bill, it really doesn't matter. Right? You can't make money out of no money. Right? So we have to look at these things and say, I can only do what I can do. I can only not do what I cannot do, and I'm going to focus. And that's when we look at these and we say, well, what if there's someone out there that doesn't buy my stuff? And that's one of the things, and I'll shut up in a minute because I've been talking too much. But that's one of the things that really hit me in AA recovery meetings. And I don't go to AA anymore except for maybe once every 6 months or something like that. Not that there's anything wrong with it, just different approaches. Terry goes often, and lots of people do. Lots of people stay sober. But one of the things that I got as an epiphany for AA meetings was standing in front of a group of people, nervous and sweating, to tell my story. There I was shaking. I was like, man, I've never told this to anyone. I'm going to stand in front of all these people. Some of them look like they're going to punch me in the face, but that's another story. And I'm going to tell them my story. And there I am with all my emotions, and I tell them my story. And I'm like, man, crazy. And they go, thank you. Next. And I go, wait a minute. I'm the kind of guy that I tell stories to people, and I tell people, and I want advice. I want tips. I want someone to come alongside me and say, yeah, that guy was a jerk. You're right. I want someone to interact. And the fact that they didn't interact was almost like a guru moment. Because it's like, here I am telling this stuff, and no one cares. And it's almost like it just kind of goes away. All right, Terry, what are your thoughts on that? And then we'll read some koans and talk about them.
Well, I've told my story many times, and the first time I was asked, I was given like a week or two notice, and there I write all these notes and prepare and prepare and prepare, and I get up there in front of everybody, and I was all nervous and messed it all up anyways. And other times I've been asked, can you tell your story today? And it's like 5 minutes before I'm supposed to tell it, and it's like, okay. And those are the best ones, when I'm talking from my heart, when when you get to that point, much like the Zen Koans, I just had to let go of any of my thoughts as to how people are going to react, just tell my story from the heart. And those are always the best stories that I end up telling, just speaking from the heart and not having any of those outside influences. And that's a lot of what I get out of the Zen Koans is just trying to clear the mind and thinking about not thinking about what to do. When I first got sober, one thing that I was able to do, and I find that a lot of people have difficulty with this, and I not that I did it perfectly or anything like that, but I was able to let go of many of my predetermined opinions as far as what I need to do to get sober, maybe spirituality, things like that. I didn't come into sobriety with any spirituality that I could think of, and I was just able to let go and just think about maybe there is something to this. And then what people would tell me to do, they wouldn't tell me how to not drink. They would tell me how to live. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, that doesn't seem to make sense. All I need to learn how to do is to not drink so I can get all this in my life. Yeah. And it was learning how to live. That's what it came down to. And that's what I still do today is I practice living in a good way. And that seems to help me a lot. So I haven't studied Zen Koans a lot, but a little bit here and there. And they're difficult to answer because there is no real answer, as Marcus said. But they definitely get me thinking, even though I'm not really supposed to think. It's supposed to come from the gut.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what it does is it's almost like a story. When I learned marketing early on, I learned that the best way to sell something is to tell a story, and I've learned it time and time again. I've done thousands of talks, and when I tell a story, it makes a ton of money. When I talk about like teaching people stuff, doesn't make anything. And the reason is because a story bypasses our natural cognitive thinking, and it puts it into a different realm, right? And also, what it does is a thing called transderivational search. And transderivational search is where your brain is constantly trying to put yourself in that story, right? So if I tell a story about a guy who was a jerk when he drank, you're gonna go through your memory and you're gonna be like, well, there was a time I was a jerk when I drank. I wonder how this would apply to me. And a lot of times we go through and we look at that, and that's kind of what the cones do, is they bypass our normal thinking. Because, guys, we spend lots of time thinking. How many of you guys have spent, I don't know, I'm going to say, let's say 24 hours in a day. How many hours are in a year, right? I don't know. Someone want to Google that? How many hours are in a year? A lot, right? 6,000 plus or something like that, I think, if my math is correct. Probably closer to 10,000. And so we look at that, and it's like, if I spend all this time thinking about not drinking, how is that working for me? If I spend all this time thinking about a problem, how is that working? I know people who spend 20 years of their life thinking about a problem, right? They're like, I got this problem with my mom or my dad or my brother. And they think about it for years and years and years and years. And how's that working for you? It's not working. Why? Because the same thinking that got you in the mess is not going to be the same thinking that gets you out of the mess, right? It's kind of like there's a Zen Koan, I think it is, or a saying, that muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. Think about that for a minute, right? In our lives, how many times do we get in the muddy water and we're trying to clean it by swashing around and, oh, God, get all this mud out. Shit, let's bail it out. And you keep looking and it's like, it's getting more muddy. What are we going to do? It keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And the reason is because muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. And I'm watching the little replay here of myself flailing around, and I look like a maniac, but that's all cool. That's all good. But muddy water is best.
That's true in quitting drinking. You know, while I was drinking, I was doing everything I possibly could to stop drinking or control the drinking. I'm only going to drink this much today. It wouldn't work. I'd end up drinking the whole bottle every single time. I was just fighting it. Then get into the marital problems. I'd fight those head on. It just got worse. And the legal problems, they would just mount and mount, because I'd do everything I could to just get out of them, fight them head on. Mm-hmm. Finally, I got sober and I just left it alone. I took alcohol out of the equation. I had to get professional help, because I wasn't able to, just get sober on my own, because I kept on fighting. But getting through that detox, I was able to clear the mind and then start working on life. And the things just magically started to disappear. Those problems did.
There's another good one here. Let me see if I can find it. I have to put it up here so I can read it. Hogan, a Chinese Zen teacher, lived in a small temple in the country. One day, 4 traveling monks appeared and asked if they might make a fire in his yard to warm themselves. While they were building the fire, Hogan heard them arguing about subjectivity and objectivity. See, even like Zen spiritually people argue about shit. And it's like, okay, well, what's the point? And so he joined them and said, "There's a big stone." He points at a big stone. Let's see the big stone. "Do you consider it to be inside or outside your mind?" And one of the monks replied, "From the Buddhist viewpoint, everything is objectification of the mind. So I would say the stone is inside my mind." And so Hogan listens to that, or Hogan, something like that. And he says, instead of saying, "Oh, well, let's get in this argument," he says, "Well, your head must feel very heavy if you're carrying around a stone like that in your mind." I didn't think about that, right? You could think about like the main stuff and be like, oh, well, it's about this or it's about that. But I think these are meant to be taken deeper and really chewed on, right? Chew on them. Say, what could we do here? How could we understand this? What is this trying to teach us? Another one that I like for alcoholism, this is just one of my favorites for alcoholism, is old pond, frog jumps in, splash. Right, what would that mean? And another one that we have here for a lot of people who struggle with issues, right? A lot of people come with their issues, and they have these issues. And it says, one day, Chow Chow fell down in the snow and called out, "Help me, help me, help me up." And a monk came and laid down right by him. Chow Chow got up and went away. Right? And we
That's
think
great.
about these. What's that?
I love that one. That one's a good one.
It's one of my favorites. And it's
Yeah.
funny because we actually had a guy in our Facebook group, the guy who came with these problems, and I was like, hey, I could get into the problems, I could talk about it. And I was like, I think I'm just going to send him a Zen Koan and stay sober for 24 hours. Think about it and stay. And he did. And I think he's on day 4 now. And it's interesting because they open our mind. They make us think different. They get our mind off of the stuff that we think is really the problem when it's really not the problem. The problems that we have are really not the problem. Right? If you think about that. Let's take a look at a couple others, and then we'll take some questions. One of my favorites is this guy says, "Master, I have no peace of mind. Please pacify my mind." He's like this guy. He's got the working of the mind. It's going crazy. And this was me. For years before I got sober, my mind was crazy. I talked to people, and it would go so fast, and it wouldn't shut up, and I didn't care what you had to say. I only cared about my problems. And so this was me. I was like, "Master, I have no peace of mind." And of course, he didn't get in for a long time to ask his question because the Bodhisattva or Bodhidharma refused to see anybody. Finally, he cut off his arm. Disclaimer, don't cut off your arm. This is just a story for illustration purposes. But finally, he cut off his arm as a token of his sincerity and presented it to the master and said, "All right, what do you want?" The master says, "What do you want? You cut off your arm. I guess I'll listen to you now." And he said, "Well, I have no peace of mind." And the Bodhidharma says, bring your mind before me and I'll pacify it." And then the guy says, "Well, when I look for my mind, I can't find it." And the guy says, "There, it's pacified." And he went away enlightened. And we think about that, and a lot of this stuff that we're looking for is stuff that's already solved. A lot of the problems in our life are already solved. And what we're doing is we're carrying them. There's this beautiful story of 2 monks that were walking along the road or the desert or whatever, and they come to a river. And the river's pretty deep, and it's going pretty strong. And there's a lady there, and she can't cross the river. She doesn't swim strong enough or whatever. And monks had a rule where you don't touch a woman. You don't touch them. You don't look at them funny. Nothing. No handshakes, no nothing. And they come to the edge of the river, and they see this lady struggling. One of the monks is like, well, puts her up on his shoulders, walks across the river, sets her down, have a nice day. They go walking. They go walking for about 2 miles, and 2 miles down the road, the monk turns to him, and this dude has been fuming. The last 2 miles, he's been having a conversation in his head like, how do I tell this guy a thing or two? The freaking guy broke like 10 rules. You know, I'm going to tell the other monk people and the monk, like king or whatever they call them, right? The boss, and he's just fuming. And he turns to the monk and he's like, "Do you know how many rules you broke by carrying that lady across the river?" I mean, and he's mid-sentence and the guy goes, "But I left her on the other side of the river and you're still carrying her. I only carried her 100 feet. You've been carrying her 2 miles." And we think about that in our lives and it's like, wow, how much stuff am I carrying that I could have left on the other side of the river? Right? Very, very important. All right, let's take some of these questions here as we go through. And if you guys like this topic, let me know. Sometimes I don't know whether my topics are like crackpot ideas or, hey, stuff that helped me. So, who knows?
Well, first of all, congratulations on 122 days, Ty, and hi, Cassie. THC Gamer, good to see you again. 1 week sober. Keep it up, man. I know you could do a sober summer. You can do a Christian Kumar, 10 days. Mm-hmm. Megan, good to see you again. Michael, all right, seeing you on the Facebook group. Great. All right. Good job, Christian. 2 years. And right on. Everybody's doing great. Jacob says, I think it's a control issue. I still don't quite understand spirituality. And Jacob, me too. I don't either. And all I do is I just try to stay open with it. And that's okay. And whether any of you are trying to be spiritual or not, it's okay.
And I
I'm
think
just trying to stay sober is what I'm trying to do.
and I
And
think it's important too to realize that no one really understands spirituality.
right.
They can understand their version of what they think it is, but we really don't get it. We don't know.
Yeah.
I used to have all the answers back when I used to be a preacher, but I found out that those answers were futile. They were good enough answers, right? I was like, well, that's good enough for me. I've made a decision. This is what I'm going to follow. And then one of those doors opened in my brain, and I said, I'm not so sure anymore. I'm not so sure. And I looked at it, and I was like, well, I can't sit here on earth and say that I know what God wants, or thinks, or feels, or looks like. Did we just lose our stream? Oh, there we go. We're
Um,
back.
I'm
Little
seeing it.
glitch. I think we're
Yeah.
back now. Um, and we look at that and we really don't know. And I think for me, one of the most important things in recovery has been being comfortable with insecurity, being comfortable with, I don't know. I really don't know. And being able to say that because you see people all the time getting in arguments. And I'm actually a little anxious. We're having a family get together and some people I haven't seen in a while. And I know some of my family's very different viewpoints than me, and they like to talk about it in a way that's like, hey, dumbass, come over here. And I'm like, I could pull out books and I can prove my case and I can, I like to think I'm smarter, maybe not, who knows? But I can do that, or I could just be like, what does it matter if one guy in Alabama thinks different than me here in Florida? What does it matter?
Yeah.
What does it all matter in the end? And that's the kind of thing you would go to the guru and you would say, Guru, I've got these people in my family, and they just won't think like me, and I know I'm right. And he would say, what is it to be right?
Right.
What is it
Exactly.
to be right? What is it to be spiritual? What is it to be comfortable? Where is your mind? What is understanding? Right? You have a book that tells you you're right. They have a book that tells them they're right. Who knows? You know? Hopefully our stream keeps up. I think
I
we're
think
having
we're
a
good
little...
right now.
I'm getting a red flashing
Oh,
light.
yeah.
So
Something's
we'll see.
happening.
We've had some internet issues here, so hopefully we're okay. If we do get cut off, apologize ahead of time. So let's try to take some questions before that happens, if it does.
Well, Millennium Hippie said drain the swamp, and I think he was referring to the muddy pond, leaving it alone. And you know what? My first thought when I saw drain the swamp was my fish tanks. If I drain the fish tank, there's going to be all this residue at the bottom, and it's going to be really dirty. If I leave the fish tank alone, it clears up by itself. But the stuff, all that dirt and whatever in the tank settles to the bottom. And if I go in there and churn up the bottom, it's all dirty again. But it stays clean when I leave it alone. So there's my little thought of wisdom.
Yeah,
I don't know if any of that made sense.
totally. Yeah, it does, because it's like we spend all our time trying to fix things that are naturally going to go away. And I found in sobriety, none of the problems I had before paled in comparison to what alcoholism was doing to my life. And I would sit there and I would stew about, well, if I could just fix this, or I could just fix that, and I could just fix this, and I could just do that. And I found that the muddy pond was better left alone. And some things you don't need to deal with right now. Right? Like, obviously, if your doctor says you have, like, stage 4 liver disease or liver cancer or something like that, like, go to the doctor, deal with that now. But most of the things that we talk about, most of the stuff we deal with, like an alcohol craving, you deal with, what is a craving? So I feel like drinking because I drank before. Big deal. So many people fight them. Let them be. You don't have to feed them. You just let them be. Right? And I've learned in sobriety that sometimes it's okay to just be hungry. Like I used to be like, I feel hungry. I'm going to go drink. Now I'm like, I feel hungry. Big deal. Whatever. I'll go sit and do something else and whatever. And we have to look at that. Megan says, I don't have any cravings, and I think the last time I drank scared me so much that I don't want to touch alcohol again, and I know I will face major consequences if I drink again. It's a good place to be. Yeah, I like to have a healthy fear of alcohol, because like I don't know what it's. I know it fucks my brain up, and I know that if my brain's tweaked a little bit, all bets are off. Right? So I would look at that. You want to take some other ones here, Terry?
Sure, I'm going back up a little bit. Christian Kumar says, what do you think about 12-step program? Is it work or does it work? And, I'd answer this way. I think if you or if anybody is truly deep down in their heart, they want to stop drinking, any program's going to work. If you're not 100% deep down wanting to quit, nothing is going to work. And that's the experience that I've seen working with people, and it really has to be deep down. It's not to get, of course it's to get rid of the negative consequences, but it's more than that. It's all the way. A person really has to want to quit. And it took me a long time to get to that point. When I got to that point, I was able to get sober and stay sober. And then it's just a matter of continuing on and realizing that I have to do something to continue my sobriety. So that would be my answer for that one.
And I think also is I don't want to live this way anymore. I don't want to live chained to alcohol. I don't want alcohol to make my thoughts spiral out. I don't want alcohol to cause me, whatever's going on, and looking at it and saying, I want something more. Like the Commodore says, I was trying to find happiness all the time. Trying to find happiness all the time led me to search for it in a bottle. And it's like, it's kind of like the whole thing about, pacify my mind. Where's your mind? Oh, wow, I'm pacified. It's kind of like you're looking for happiness. Where's the happiness? Where's it going to be? Is it in Tahiti? Is it with a woman? Is it a new job? What does it look like? What if you already have it, but you're not paying attention to it? What if, contrary to the Constitution or whatever it is, happiness isn't something to be pursued? What if happiness is innate in all of us, in being? And no matter what spiritual text you look at, all of them have the common theme of abiding in God, or resting in the presence, or being in the moment, or being right now. Right? All of them have that. Like you look at it, back when I was preaching the Bible, I think it's like John 14-16. There's stuff in the Quran about it. There's stuff in Jewish texts. There's stuff everywhere about the idea of just being. Where does true happiness come from? It comes from fulfillment in feeling full, and you can't feel full if you are not in the moment, in the present. Looking at it as not desiring, right? Discomfort comes from desire. I desire something different. I desire to not feel the way that I feel right now, so I'm going to go and I'm going to get some booze. I desire to not have this argument, so I'm going to check out with a bottle. All these things are dealing with the emotions instead of just being with them. And in Western culture, we look at it and we want to escape emotions. This is an escape culture, right? It's like, oh, wife yells at me, gotta escape. Screw that shit. I'm going to go drink. I'm going to go to the bar. I'm going to go do this. And we never sit and say, well, what is it like to be just sad one day? What if I just lost someone I love and I'm a little sad? What if I didn't have to escape that? What if that was part of happiness? I think about what if that was part. What if we look at it and we're like, wow, I got that person in my life. They're still here. in spirit, in words, in what they've injected into my life, right? What if that's part of it? What if all these things that we're fighting are the same things that happiness is derived from? What if it's not a thing? What if it's already in you? And that's what I found through sobriety, is everything I was looking outside for. Give me a pile of cash, I'll be happy. Give me a wife who doesn't talk back, I'll be happy. Give me this, give me that, give me this, give me that, and I will be happy. And I found out I got sober, and I lost everything that I thought would make me happy, and I found happiness. I was like, shit, here I am. I'm pretty much broke. I don't want to work anymore. I'm a little depressed. And then something just clicked, and I said, wow. It's not about anything I ever thought it was about. And that's what sobriety is about. Is living in the discomfort. Be like, hey, I'm uncomfortable right now, and that's okay. I don't need to drink it. I am happy right now. That's good. I don't need to drink and celebrate. And I guarantee no matter what, your brain's going to want to find a drink for everything. Happy, sad, lonely, tired, awake, too awake, got to slow it down. Not awake enough, got to drink and have coffee at the same time like a lunatic, right? And that's how we live. And it's like, happiness is right here. All right. Any thoughts on that, Terry?
That was very deep. Good job. For me, happiness happens most of the time. I agree with everything you said. And living things happen that are negative in my life, absolutely. And learning to live with them is part of living. It's part of sobriety. It's part of my life. But I find that just my sobriety, I am almost all the time happy. It's really comes down to that. And when I was drinking, I was exactly the same as Marcus. I wanted this, wanted that. Wanted people to not do this, not do that, not say that. I wanted people's opinions to be, Terry's the greatest guy in the world. Mm-hmm. And since I got sober, my focus is completely different. I want to be happy. I want to help people. I never thought I wanted to help people. Geez, I was like, whatever. They can do whatever they want. I'm concerned about my family and friends, and it's amazing. I'm happy with what I have, not with I need this to be happy. Yeah. I'm happy with a loud dog drinking water behind me.
Who wouldn't be happy with Hank? I mean, Hank is great.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of good comments. Good to see you, Brittany. Love your posts on Facebook. It's great. Appreciate your input.
Absolutely. And the Facebook link is in the chat box somewhere.
It's towards the beginning.
Yeah, somewhere in the beginning. So if you do want to join the group, it's kind of a more private place where you can talk about issues and stuff like that. During the week when you need stuff. We're not always on there, but I do try to look at it at least once a day. So, yeah.
Millennium Hippie back earlier, I just wanted to address this one real quick. Just he said, always going to have cravings, been sober 10 months. What I do is remember the pain and damage my addiction has caused. And absolutely. And a lot of people have cravings for a long time. I was lucky I didn't have cravings for a long time, although they do creep up occasionally. But craving, nobody knows why some people have cravings for an extended period of time, but it happens quite commonly. And it's just a matter of, you have your tool. You remember the pain and damage.
Yeah. And also remember the muddy water thing. Because cravings are like muddy water. Sometimes they're best left alone. Just leave them be. They'll clear up eventually. And if they don't, a thought is just a thought. We don't have to pay any mind. And that's what I love about, I guess it'd be like Zen or Buddhist teaching or something like that, is the fact that it really comes down to really looking at thought as chemical impulses in the brain based on language that we didn't invent. And we're fighting these thoughts. I remember when I was in the church years ago, They would say, take every thought captive. And it's like a war, Satan's the bad thought and God's the good thought. And it's like, well, I don't think so. Like, I really don't think, I really don't think so. We'll leave it at that. But the idea of fighting these thoughts, instead of just being like, this is what my mind does. This is what any mind would do. It's kind of like there's a scene in Men in Black, and he goes, congratulations, gentlemen. You guys are what we've come to expect from years of government training. And you know what? Congratulations, everyone on this call. You are what we'd come to expect from years of society's conditioning. If you took a Marcus and you put him in your situation at birth, he would be you right now. That's the way it is. Yeah. Like, I don't care what it is. I could sit here and say, oh, I am the most sober person in the world. I will never drink again. Hallelujah. And you put me in the right circumstance, I'll drink. Like, there's certain buttons that Earth has that can push, and it'll crack me. And now that I know that, I have complete freedom. When I used to fight it, I was like, oh, shit, man, what are we going to do? That's not going to happen to me. Now I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to try to stay sober today. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. If a guy comes and, like, hits me on the toe with a hammer repeatedly, I might break down. I don't know. And we look at these things, and it's like, when we deal with our thoughts, a thought is just a thought. Just a thought. Let it pass. And I was telling my kids last night, I'm like, thoughts are like rivers. And one of them was like, I got to stop thinking about this guy. And I'm like, okay, well, the reason you're thinking about the guy is because for the past 6 months or whatever, you had been thinking about them. And it comes up, like, everyone on this call right now, if I tell you about red cars, red car, red car, red car, red cars are great. I guarantee you go for a drive, you're going to think there's more red cars on the road. Are there more red cars on the road? No. You're just noticing them more. Thoughts are the same way. Are you thinking about cravings more? Probably not. You're just noticing them more because you don't have anything to feed them. And so we look at this and we're like, here's all these thoughts. And we just watch them. We say, that's cool. It's all right. It's going to be okay. They're just thoughts. We don't need to wrestle with them. All right. Jacob says, well, I'm going into treatment, so I might not have access to YouTube for a while. I like this channel, though. Jacob, I have heard people say that they have been playing our videos in some rehabs. So maybe if you want to bring it up to them, they might play it for group meetings or something. I know sometimes they're looking for content at rehab, so, it's an option. But otherwise, they'll have good stuff for you, too. I mean, But yeah, one guy was like, I watched you guys in my rehab, and I was like, oh, really? It's like, yeah, they showed you in front of the whole group. I was like, okay. Thought that was kind of cool. I never did get a check, though, so who knows? Did you get a check, Terry?
No.
No, that's okay.
Brittany says, happiness seems so far away when you were early in your journey. I mentioned in Facebook, but I was sober and just making a meal for myself made me happy as well. And as we all know, we rarely eat when we drink. Absolutely. And, Mrs. B also said, I feel like since I quit drinking, I'm just so depressed and blah. I want to be alone. Hopefully that goes away. I'm only on month 7, and Chef Pete is, I feel the same. And, for me, I had quite a bit of happiness when I first got sober because, I don't know, maybe I appreciated the fact that I had not died when I was so close to it. But for me, some people, I forgot who mentioned it earlier, but I think it was Millennium Hippie, gratitude. It seems like the silliest thing in the world to do every day, but I am grateful, and I list things that I'm grateful for. Very simple things. Making a meal that you rarely eat when we drink. I love doing that. I cook all sorts of fancy stuff. I'm a professional chef, so I do that. Actually, I tend to go simple at home, but I love the simple stuff. But it's gratitude for little things like that. When I walk my dog every morning, I love it. And I'm grateful for the beautiful day, the rainy day, the cold day. It doesn't matter. It's another day that I'm here and I get to enjoy it.
And I would say for me,
go ahead.
I would say for me, when I was first sober, I was down but not depressed. It was like there was kind of a slowness about it, little cloudy, but I was happy to be sober. It wasn't like I'm out of rehab now. I'm like some happy dude. I found that the keys are laughter, enjoying the rituals, because I always loved cooking, and it got to the point where it got to be a chore for me, because I'm the cook here. And luckily, throughout sobriety, I started to get that back because you start to taste things when you're sober. And I got more into it, and I started to enjoy the little rituals of things that people do. Because, like, in old cultures, like Native Americans, they would have this whole ritual about eating. And now we're like, oh, go to the freaking McDonald's. I got to eat or I'm going to be whatever. And no one should ever go to the McDonald's. It's just not even food. But at any rate, I digress. But that's how we view it. And we're viewing everything as a rush instead of looking at it and being like, wow, I can cook this and I can make something that I enjoy and really, really enjoy the process. And what this is about is enjoying the process. The process. Right now, you're in a process. It might seem a little down, and you're going to be all that much more happy when it seems up. And it's okay. Embrace wherever you're at. Embrace it. That's not to say, like, go listen to, the Cranberries over and over and cry. I mean, unless you need to. That's cool. Cranberries is a good band, but they depress the hell out of me. I get, like, totally sad when I listen to them. But enjoy where you're at. Enjoy the little things. Be conscious of every step you take. Be conscious of everything you do. Instead of turning on the TV, maybe go outside and go out barefoot. Put your feet in the grass and just be okay. And be like, hey, this is where we're at right now. And also notice you put a lot of chemicals in your body with drinking. That's going to screw some shit up. I mean, it's going to screw some shit up. Yeah. And I would also challenge that. Am I more depressed than when I drank? You're probably less, because I was a pretty depressive drunk, and when I was depressed when I got sober, I was still better off than drinking. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. Brittany says maybe it has something to do with the victim mentality we talked about before that is preventing happiness. I'm no expert, but it seems to relate. Absolutely. Victim mentality is the lack of gratitude. If you're a victim, you're not gratitude. You don't have gratitude. And what I would do is I would say to the person who's depressed, get a bigger world. Get a bigger world. Because right now you're depressed and you're like, oh, my world sucks. I only got this and this and this. And if you pan out and you're like, there's 8 billion people on this earth. There's some people that are in the middle of wars. Some people who have nothing to eat. There's some people who are still drinking. I'm not. I'm grateful for that today. I can go outside. I'm grateful that even when I was in the house, we had to get a rental house after a while, and it was a blow to my ego. I was like, I got to rent. I bought houses for years. I was a successful businessman. Now I got to rent for a while. And I found more happiness sitting in the little tiny backyard with no pool than I ever did in the backyard with the pool drinking. I was like, how does this happen? How am I happy? Right? It's like, well, because I'm grateful for little things. I'm grateful that I didn't die in my big house, which is where I was headed. I hope that helps someone. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think that going through gratitude, it definitely helps. Of course, some people, they have depression. They may have no reason. In fact, let's see who just mentioned it. I think Mrs. B. But I'm truly grateful and very blessed. There is nothing I'd change, so no reason to be depressed. And many people have no reason to be depressed, yet they're still depressed. And I've had that on a limited scale, and that's why sometimes we just have to learn to live with it, or get some professional help. Because so once again, I'm not a professional. Neither is Marcus as far as depression and clinical things go. We're just recovered alcoholics, and I know what's worked for me, and that is being trying to live in a positive way, having things to do. I know a lot of people. They get sober, they're bored. The boredom causes a lot of depression. You start thinking about things, thinking about what should be, what should have happened if you didn't drink, or things like that. I've done that, and I just try to stay busy and try to move in the right direction, but also at the same time not worry about it so much. Things are going to happen, positive, negative. It's okay. I just try to deal with them and keep myself happy.
And some days you just feel like shit,
Yep.
and also challenge it. Maybe you're not depressed. Maybe you're like me. Maybe you're just down and you don't know what to do with it because it just feels weird. Maybe you're just down. That's cool. It's a flow. Like there's always winters and falls and springs and summers, and you know it happens. Like if I sat there and I was like, God dang, the rain's coming. Although here in Florida it rains in the summertime and not in the winter, But we got to look at that, and maybe we're not. Maybe what we think isn't really it. All right, Brittany says, today would have been my 5th-year wedding anniversary. We are separated, and he has a girlfriend. It's difficult to not feel awful today, but I'm just going to work on being okay with those feelings because there's always tomorrow. Exactly, and there's always you. You're still here, right? And we look at it, and it's like, well, I have everything I need. It's living out of lack that gets us in trouble. I need this. And I've thought about it a lot, and I've thought about life, and I'm like, if I really love someone, I want go be free. If I'm not what makes you happy, that's cool. Go find what does. And sometimes it's a hard thing to look at, and sometimes it's difficult because our ego and our pride gets in the way. But it's like, hey, you know what? Maybe something better's going to come around the corner. Maybe it's time to learn about myself. And we got to look at that. And sure, there's times when people are just complete asses and they hurt us, and that's not okay and that's not cool. But do we want to leave it on the side of the river, or do we want to keep carrying it?
And Brittany, I totally relate to what you're going through. I've seen your posts on Facebook too. Um, about a year or so before I got sober, my wife left me for another man, and it even into sobriety, it made me feel terrible. And I just faced it. I had to, of course, I had to look at my part in it. I was married to the bottle. I wasn't married to her. She was just a roommate, really. And but even it took time. It really took time. And I still think about it. But it's been what 6 years since we separated, and then after that divorced. And I'm in contact with her. We're not best friends. We don't hang out. I don't hang out with that guy. But when I see him, I can give her a hug, shake his hand. It's okay. And it took a long time to get over that one. That was probably the hardest one to get over, but it did eventually get better. So hang in there.
Yep. And talk to people.
Yep.
And really use the time to understand yourself. And not in like a foo-foo self-love kind of way. Like I hate the whole, love yourself movement, because it's like all your problems are because you love yourself, right? So I don't think you need to love yourself more, but just understand yourself. Understand what's going on. Understand what you need. I remember, and have not had a rainbows and butterflies marriage for the last 19 years. It's been difficult at times, very difficult. And a lot of it is because when I was young, I thought that love happened. I thought, oh, well, here's this person. We like each other. I guess that's what love is. I didn't think you could actually go and choose who you want, choose the life you want. And I live life as if life happened to me. And it caused all kinds of problems. And now I've learned, and I've seen that life happens all around us. Things are happening. People are leaving. People are staying. People are changing. People are growing. People are going different ways. And it's not so much happening to us as happening, and we're part of it. We're part of what's going on. And once we start to understand ourselves and be like, hey, you know what? I can be okay. Like, I think learning to cook and enjoy cooking, that's a big step. Just, hey, I enjoy this little thing, instead of sitting there and cooking and, oh, well, cooking for one person or whatever. And, just, yeah, I think that's it. I think if I don't shut up, I'll ruin it.
I hear people that are fairly new sober, and they're like, you know what I did today? I made my bed today, first time in 10 years. Little simple things like that. I appreciate those little things. It's awesome.
Yeah, I remember one time. I love to cook. I like to think I'm a good cook. Compared to Terry, I probably have a lot to learn. And one time I was drinking too much, and I was trying to make macaroni and cheese from a box. It was a sin. It was terrible. Probably still have to pay for that sin. But I was like, whatever, I'm going to make this really good. And I burned it because I was drunk, and when you're drunk, you do stupid stuff like that. And I was literally in tears because I couldn't make box mac and cheese, and I thought I was a good cook. And I'm like, wow, okay. And now I look at it, and I'm like, I didn't, I'll make something, and it's not as good as I wanted or whatever. And I'm like, I didn't burn the mac and cheese. That's pretty good, and I didn't cry about it. So that's a step ahead, I think.
I like box mac and cheese.
Gotta like chemicals sometimes.
Of course. Miss B mentioned my dear friend Trista was found dead in her car in a Walmart parking lot. She'd been there for 4 days. She drank herself to death. That was what threw me into sobriety. And you also say she'd been really, really bad shortly before her death. She was having alcohol psychosis and losing her mind slowly from the drink. It broke my heart. That's the reality of this of alcoholism. Is many people don't make it, and that's a difficult thing with relapsing as well. I've seen people that relapse that don't come back, and something like that happens. And alcohol almost killed me as well.
And I think Miss B was the one talking about depression. And I would say you have every right to be sad.
Absolutely.
I mean, come on, like that's not something you get over in a day. And I would look at that and be like, it's okay. It's okay to be sad. And she says cooking sounds fun to try. Yeah, cooking is. I actually have thought about starting a cooking channel, but I have so many other channels that I don't know if I'll have time. And everyone would get annoyed because I don't measure anything. Like, my wife hates it. I don't even measure when I'm baking. And baking, you have to be like 1 level teaspoon. And I'm like,
you kind of have to measure baking, but.
What's that? You kind of do have to, but
yeah,
I don't.
You do need to measure when you're baking. But I don't measure other stuff,
yeah. But it drives her nuts because it's always different. Like, she's like, it tastes different than last time. And I'm like, well, I wanted it different than last time. If I wanted it the same, I would have measured.
That's what you tell her, huh?
That's what I tell her, yeah. But yeah, that's one of the things I've really liked is that my cooking has gotten better as I've been sober. Like, I enjoy it. I've tried all kinds of different types of cuisines. The money that I've saved on alcohol, I've gotten all kinds of like cooking equipment. I got a tandoori oven. I don't use it because I can't keep it hot enough because I don't know what I'm doing. But it's pretty cool. Like, I tried to like stick the breads on.
Yeah.
And they fell down and caught on fire.
Oh.
So I'm trying.
Man, that'd be good. That's my favorite bread of any bread is like an onion naan.
Oh man, that's good.
The best.
Yeah, Indian food is. I like Indian food. The problem though is most places that you get tandoori, it's usually leftover. Like, it's really hard around here to find a tandoori place that makes tandoori chicken fresh.
We have many good Indian restaurants. And MR is saying yes, Terry Marcus cooking channel. Okay, now let's go back to what we were focusing on. Sorry, folks. But well, there you go. There's Chef Pete says no matter how many times he drank, he never put a fork or a spoon in the microwave. So Good job. I had almost caught the house on fire by I was just making some hard-boiled eggs, and then I passed out, and then it was all burnt, smoky eggs.
Mm,
And if I had stayed passed out, it could have been really bad. And that's the reality of this stuff, this drinking thing. But
cool.
let's see what else we got.
Brittany says something off topic. Oh, it went away. I think she's keeping track of how much she saves not drinking or something like that. All right. Cool. Any other questions or comments? Oh, there it is. Something I've been doing is I have a notebook that every day I don't drink, I write down how much money I saved. That's something that makes me happy.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
for
pretty
sure.
cool. I've never done that, but yeah, I did realize that I was spending about 600 a month on drinking. That would just be the alcohol. That's not how much I was spending on everything else that the drinking was causing.
Yeah. All right. Jacob says I wanted to mention the treatment thing. Was there another thing you wanted to mention?
Well, he did mention before that he's going to treatment and that
Okay.
he's okay with it.
Good.
And yeah, treatment is a very good way to get yourself away from the alcohol. For me, treatment gave me a lot of tools and things that I could work with. What I didn't do when I was in treatment is I didn't really deep down try to figure out what I was going to do when I went back to the real world where I could get alcohol right down the street. At treatment, there's no alcohol there. It was easy to not drink. And so when I got out of treatment, I did not have a game plan, or I told them I had a game plan and I knew what I needed to do. I just didn't do it. And when I got out, I didn't follow the game plan and I started drinking. So that's just my experience. And if I do kind of wish I had gone into treatment with the attitude of I'm going to do whatever it takes when I get out. That's what Marcus did. And he stayed sober when he got out, and I didn't. But treatment was absolutely crucial for my recovery. Even though I started drinking, it was part of my journey, and it's one of the keys for me finally getting sober about a month and a half later.
Yeah. Cool. Michael says I went back to my checkbook since the first of the year, 1,000 a month.
Okay.
Yep, and that doesn't even include the repercussions of drinking. Like, if I look at me, the amount I spent and the amount I lost was absurd. I'd lose money, I'd screw up cars, I'd
Oh
all
yeah.
kinds of things. And it's like I think the first thing I did after about a year sober is the money I saved. I got an employee to help me out with stuff. That was cool. It's like I could either fall over and be miserable, or have someone help me with my business, and then because of that we grew. But yeah, 1,000 a month, man. You could invest in a rental property and you'd be set in 20 years. Um, but yeah, Commodore says life without hangovers is great. Absolutely, hangovers suck. So, yeah. In Finland tomorrow, the biggest drinking night, staying sober. Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, and hop in the Facebook group if you need to talk to someone. I know sometimes it's difficult during those times, but they're here. We're here. Yeah. Cool.
Yep.
Any last minute words of wisdom?
Sure. I think with these Zen Koans, what I kind of got out of it was really the importance of letting go. And for me, what letting go meant was letting go of my preconceived notions of what needed to be done, what I thought for sobriety. I really had to let go of what I thought that I didn't want to do, or things. I'm not really explaining this well, but I had to just be open-minded and just accept, not say that I was going to agree with or anything, but just accept that there might be some way that I can get and stay sober and try to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
I had to let go of the fear of having people help me. I was like, I always was gonna do this by myself. I'm not gonna tell anybody about what I'm trying to do. And finally, I was able to get over that fear and get sober. And then we talked a lot about gratitude. So just being grateful for the little things, being satisfied with what I have right now. So there's my little bit of wisdom.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in today. If you want to support the channel, go to talksober.com, click the big button, and we'll send you out a Talk Sober t-shirt. I think we have most of the sizes. And
Well, hi, Frederico. You said greetings a couple times. I just wanted to say hi back.
Hey, Frederico from Chile.
Yep.
Cool. All right, guys. So, yeah, if you want to support us, go to talksober.com, click the button that says support the channel. It's less than a beer a day, and that's even a crappy beer, like a domestic, not good one. And you can help us out with what we're doing here. We really want to take this message to a lot of people. I know our goal is to change the way that America talks about alcoholism, change the way people talk about it, start bringing understanding to it, and help people stay sober. And as you guys can see, a lot of people, it's actually really humbling to look at, but a lot of people are staying sober, and that's awesome. So go, you guys. That is awesome. And join us over in the Facebook group, support the channel, and we'll see you next week.